Warcraft is directed by Duncan Jones, who made two really good films, Moon and Source Code, two films I really enjoyed, so I was thusly excited to see what he could bring to this world. And of course, as you probably know, it's based off one of the most successful video games of all time, World of Warcraft. It's pretty much impossible to be a human being that hasn't heard of World of Warcraft. Now, I've never personally gotten into the game, so I'm not looking for fan service. I'm not looking for things that are going to remind me of my time playing this game. I'm wondering, is this a good film? Does it work on the big screen? In this film, you have orcs and you have humans, and they are at battle. A portal separates their world, and sometimes the horde of orcs comes through that portal to steal away humans because the orc leader has the ability to suck the energy out of anything living, and he wants to do that to humans as well as some of his own people because their land is being destroyed. So a few orcs are starting to feel rebellious against their leader, and those orcs team up with the humans to hopefully go against this guy and take him down. This movie is being lambasted by critics. Usually I try not to look too deeply into reviews before I see a movie because I don't want anything to affect my judgment. But the reviews from professional critics are so harsh that it's almost impossible to drown out that noise, plus it opened in a lot of other places already. I personally don't feel this movie is as bad as critics are saying. There is definitely some entertainment value. I know the audience I saw it with did a lot of clapping and cheering, and they were having fun with a lot of the action set pieces, and one of the strongest things in this film is Duncan Jones as a director. The movie definitely has some problems, and I'll get into those in a minute, but Duncan Jones did bring a unique perspective to this video game turned into a movie. From the way he shot the opening sequence alone, I could tell there was going to be some really cool directorial flair throughout this film, and he shot a lot of really great battle sequences, and for the most part, the CGI incorporated with the humans does work fairly well. There are a few shots where the CGI was very noticeable, and one in particular where it almost looked like a fan film, where Ben Foster's character, who's playing this wizard called the Guardian, it's an overhead shot, he's summoning his power, and then there's this artificial shake that they inserted into it. It looked really bad. But for the most part, the motion capture, especially from Toby Kebbell and his character, is really good, A+ material motion capture work, and Toby Kebbell plays an orc who's at a crossroads in his life. He's the one who's feeling rebellious against his leader, and by far that was the most interesting character in the movie for me. He had something about him that I was invested in. I was actually more invested in him than any of the human characters, which brings me to my biggest problem with this movie, the human characters. I didn't give a shit about any of them, really. The main protagonist is the cool action guy who really doesn't have much going on. I relate him to Aaron Taylor Johnson in the newest Godzilla movie. He's a cool guy, he's good at his job, he has somebody in his life that he's related to that he can kind of care for, but there really wasn't that much on the page for his character. He's just the really cool guy who jumps off tall buildings and, kills people really good. There's also a younger wizard in the movie who's sort of in training who gets a lot of screen time, and I really did not care much for his character either. Paula Patton in this film plays a half-breed, and you get some sympathy for her because she is also at a crossroads in her life, similar to the other orc who's feeling rebellious, but her performance was very mugging at the camera. I like her a lot. She's a very beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but in this film, I felt that she was over the top in almost every scene she was in. My biggest issue with the human characters was Ben Foster as the Guardian. He plays this wizard who, for me, was just incredibly over the top and almost laughable from time to time, and towards the end of the film especially. It was a lot of shirika. For me, his character really didn't work. The human characters in this film and the story that they tried to create around them, for me, was very weak. I did really enjoy the battle sequences, and I thought Duncan Jones had a really nice visual touch to this movie, and some of the motion capture work was excellent. And when you judge it on the basis of video game movies in general, it is definitely above the fold, and I do think it's getting trashed way harsher than it deserves to be. The movie does try to go in a lot of different directions, and there are scenes that feel totally out of left field, like a random cameo scene from a celebrity that just feels like, why is that even there? There are a lot of scenes like that, unfortunately. But on the battlefield, whenever there's an action sequence, this movie is very entertaining, and Duncan Jones did interject some energy into it. It's just that I don't know if I really care to really experience this movie again, ever. Toby Kebbell, for me, gave the best performance in the whole movie. His character was by far the most interesting, but most of the other characters just didn't have that much behind them, and that was unfortunate. The movie is entertaining though, and I think World of Warcraft fans will probably have a fun time watching it. It's big, it's loud, there's a lot of fun action sequences, but the story and most of the characters was disappointing. I'm going to give Warcraft a C+. I personally don't feel it's a disaster like most critics are saying. There are some good things in this movie, but it was a little disappointing overall. So guys, stay tuned for this weekend, because now that I finally assembled my new background, I filmed my Captain America hilariosity, and that's going to be going up this weekend. I've also filmed 3 new retro rewinds that are in the can and ready to be released as soon as I get them uploaded. You guys are the best. Look forward to those. Thank you so much as always for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.